A few months ago, I tried beating Hollow Knight without doing any nail damage. To refresh the rules, that meant damage with the nail itself. Charms like Dream Shield and Sharp Shadow that deal damage equal to the nail do not count as nail damage in this run. I initially thought that was going to be the end of it, but one question lingered in my head. Can you get the Hollow Knight true ending without doing nail damage? The first thing I did was going to the ancient basin to get the monarch wings. On my way there, I experienced capitalism yet again. I also managed to do a speedrun skip here, and besides this, I noticed that the blobs were not dying in one spider hit, which will be kind of a problem against Broken Vessel. Or so I thought. It turns out my damage was beyond what this little guy could take, and they pretty much died in 3 spellcasts. Now with the wings in my possession, I went to the Star Wars music zone, and I suffered through the haha
Insert worst enemy joke here.
until I got to Hornet. The Hornet fight felt like I was fighting her again for the first time. I kept failing initially, but after a while I got into the rhythm of the fight, and before I knew it, I was bouncing on the spikes and dodging her without even trying. With the defeat of the Hollow Knight R34 icon, I was awarded the status of King. I used my newly acquired status to go into the abyss. The first thing I did was go to the right and take a bath in my own flesh. After I climbed back up, Hornet told me that we're not alike because I am empty inside. Aw, thanks, I'm trying, you know. I'm glad you noticed. I went back to Deep Nest, where I got every weave's wet dream. And I also got the tram pass, just to make traveling easier. Even though I ended up barely using the trams. Before fighting the left bosses and picking up all the other stuff I needed for the true ending, I decided that first I'll go and get the Halloween Raid spell and all of the other spell upgrades. First, I went to the Queen's Garden. It was pretty easy to get the Abyss Shriek. It was not easy to get to the Queen's Garden Stag. It had a horrible Mantis room, capitalism, horrible Mantis room again, and even more capitalism. So overall a pretty bad time. Now that I had every spell in the game, it was time to upgrade them. I went to the Crystal Peak, where I went through the room, and almost died. This reminds me of the good times. I got to the entrance to the Ancestral Mound, and I wasted all the soul from the totem. Thank God there was this bug here. I was not about to do that again. Inside, I did some easy platforming, and I got the Descending Dark spell. After that, I went back into the Crystal Peak. On the way to the farming room, I saved the grab, and I avoided the imposter. Hello old friend. After the farming, I said, sure, why not? After all, why shouldn't I beat in Rage Guardian? So easy. Didn't even break a sweat. With the money I farmed, I went to Sly to buy the Elegant Key. Again, I was a bit worried about Soul Warrior, since the ghost didn't die in one hit, but just like Lost Kin, I just damage tanked, dream nailed, and spammed spells. With his defeat, I got the Shade Soul upgrade. Now, it was time to get the last upgrade. I went back into the Hollow Knight R34 subreddit, and as usual, I screamed at the top of my lungs. The next preparation, what, you thought it was over? Was to go and get all the remaining charm notches. So I started by going inside the room that resembles my face in the 9th grade. I popped some pimples and I got the first charm notch. After that, I went to the Kingdom's Edge, where I met an average redditor who, like a true lad, guided me to the local Romanian cockfighting arena. I paid the BDSM enjoyer, and he let me start the first trial, but not before I weirded out the other fighters. I am going to win first try. Who are you? Can you please leave me alone? After this, I died in the Trial of the Warrior. Who the fuck dies in Trial of the Warrior? So, I lost. Understandable. Now, can you please leave me alone? You wouldn't believe what happened. I do not care. Please, go! I'm starting to believe I can't do it. If you do it, will you leave me alone? Yes? You can do it, brother. Yeah. Yeah, I can. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. Thanks for the help. I won't bother you anymore. Thank you, friend. Finally. Now that I only had 2 charm notches left, I went back to Dirtmouth where I talked with Clown Dracula. He said something about a ritual and he gave me a child, before fastly dipping out of the scene. Damn, I feel like a Dream fan. Collecting the flames was not even a challenge. The Grimkin, the big and small one, die in 2 spellcasts, or 1 properly placed spell. Now that Grimchild was grown, I went back to be the Castlevania protagonist and get the child support that he owed me. Initially, I didn't think I had an opening to gain soul, so I used the Weaverlings, but that didn't really work out. But after unequipping Weaver Song and equipping Sharp Shadow, I discovered that I could jump over the first bat, and if I properly dashed, I get just enough time to Dreamnail him and get enough soul too. With Varus from League of Legends dead, Grimchild grew even more, making him almost not useless, but still more useful than TikTok influencers. Now I only had to go back to Crystal Peak and to buy the last charm notch from Salubra. I could have gone and collected the remaining charms, but I think I'll pass on the Sloppy Toppy from Salubra. The next goal is getting 1800 essence, so I can go in the non-colored castle and beat up an old guy. My first victim of choice was the ghost of my sibling, or how speedrunners would call them, easier broken vessel. I can't say that they were much easier, but the fact that I managed to position well enough to repeatedly dreamnail them made this much easier. As a side note, this is a recurring trend with all dream bosses. With my sibling's essence harvested, I went to beat the mind version of the Excrement Guardian. For a lad his size, he had no right to be this fast, but the fact that he was a show-off and he liked to do this move meant that I could dreamnail him on the way down, or scream my lungs out and pierce out his eardrums. Do bugs even have eardrums? With the stinkiest boy in the game beaten, I only had 2 bosses left to beat. First, I went to beat the one boss that is keeping me from getting the Pantheon ending. Fuck Marcotte. All my homies hate Marcotte. Now, the only one left was the guy who only tried to protect his species. Compared to his real version, who is a weak, useless and unimpressive maggot, the version of him that was in his head was pretty impressive. Damn, truly a certified man moment. But one snapped back to reality, oh there goes gravity later, he was reminded of how useless he was. Relatable. With all the necessary bosses defeated, and a dream tree that I forgot to show, I went to the Moth Lady, and she gave me loads of rewards for bringing back her groceries. The main one being the Awoken Dreamnail. She told me to go and collect 2400 essence, but I didn't want to help her. One good deed is enough. I might actually become morally sane if I do too much good. Now I had two options: go be the traitor lord, or go in the Balso palace and suffer. Of course, I chose the traitor lord. Thankfully, it was not a problem getting to her, since I already, although not easily, cleared the mantis battles in the Queen's Garden. Outside the arena, I made sure to place a dream gate, just in case the fight ended up being a little too quirky. But I ended up not needing it, since I had Clot with me to do massive damage. With the help of the one note, one episode character Sacrifice, I was able to finally meet my mother. The first thing she acknowledged was the fact that I had a child with me, and she called us alike. Mostly because neither of us have gotten the child support we deserved, but it's fine, I guess. She also acknowledged that I was empty inside, before giving me the first half of the King Soul charm. Thanks, Mom. I'd stay longer, but something tells me you would start to talk about your urge to breed. So yeah, no thanks. After this, it was time to go and suffer through the White Palace. I instantly found a problem. These guys. On one hand, they don't die, but they do break the rule of hitting an enemy with the nail and gaining soul though. Wait, what's happening? Huh. It seems I just teleported. How weird. So, I proceeded to the pain-filled rooms of the White Palace using these guys to refill my soul. I also opened the Path of Pain. No. The only noticeable thing in here were the King's molds, but they were only noticeable, not really any danger, even with their 2 mask hits. When I finally got to the throne room, I looked the Pale King in the eyes. Then I proceeded to beat his ass for the child support that he owed me. Sadly, he was broke as fuck, and the only thing he gave me was the other half of the King's Soul charm. Now that I had everything I needed, I went back into the Abyss. Jokes aside, this is probably the highlight of this game, and the main reason why I love the true ending. It's one of the most amazing sequences I ever played in a game. After this, the preparations were finally over, and it was time to end this. After the excruciatingly tough fight, the Radiance was beaten, and the Void was finally put to rest. I am honestly surprised to see how well I've done in this challenge. I thought it would take me a lot more time to complete it. In the end, what can I say besides be sure to like and subscribe, and again, I recommend you do this while waiting for Silksong, which is the only thing I have left to do now. Or is it?